Before there were kings and empires, there were tribes, not the peaceful kind, but ruthless warriors who ruled by fear, conquered with fire, and vanished like ghosts. These were people who didn't just fight for land, they fought for glory, survival, and sometimes blood. They struck without warning, leaving only ruins and stories whispered in terror. Today, we're diving into the top 5 most fearsome ancient tribes, the ones you've probably never read about in history class, but whose names were once spoken with dread across continents. 1. The Scythians, death on horseback. Imagine a warrior who never walks. He's born in the saddle, lives on the move, and dies galloping into battle. That was the Scythian, a nomadic tribe that roamed the vast steppes of Eurasia over 2,500 years ago. They didn't build cities, they didn't plant crops. What they did build was fear. These mounted archers were some of the deadliest warriors in history. They could fire multiple arrows while riding at full speed, backwards, sideways, with terrifying precision. Their arrows often dipped in snake venom. Their bodies covered in tattoos of wolves, eagles, and spirits. Greek historian Herodotus once said, "The Scythians are invincible. You cannot catch them, nor can you defeat them. They attacked fast, disappeared faster, and left nothing behind but death and dust. No empire could tame them. No army could outrun them." The Scythians were not just warriors, they were ghosts on horseback, and when they came, the earth trembled. 2. The Huns, terror from the east. They came like thunder, no warning, no mercy. From the vast plains of Central Asia, the Huns descended upon Europe like a storm of fire, and at their front, Attila, the man feared as the scourge of God. These weren't just raiders. The Huns were destruction on horseback, riding fast, striking hard, and vanishing before anyone could fight back. Their weapons were deadly. Recurved bows strong enough to pierce Roman armor, and lassos to drag enemies from their horses. But perhaps what terrified people most was how they looked. Flat, scarred faces from childhood rituals. Fierce, burning eyes. The Romans said they were more beast than man. Entire cities surrendered just at the rumor of their approach. In 452 AD, Attila marched into Italy. The Roman emperor didn't fight, he begged. Gold was paid, peace was bought, but fear remained. Even Attila's death was legendary. Some say he bled from the nose on his wedding night, and that the earth itself swallowed his tomb. The Huns were not just fear, they were a force of nature. 3. The Celts, blue warriors of the West. Imagine charging into battle, bare-chested, covered in blue paint, screaming like a banshee. That was the Celtic way. They lived across ancient Europe, from Ireland to Gaul to Anatolia. To the Romans, they were wild barbarians. But to themselves, they were warriors of nature and spirit. The Celts believed battle was sacred. Death wasn't the end, it was a doorway. Before a fight, they painted their bodies with woad, a blue dye believed to channel protection and fury. Their weapons were ornate, their shields round, and their courage unmatched. They charged with wild cries, terrifying their enemies even before swords clashed. But the Celts weren't just brutes, they had poets, laws, and druids, mystic priests who guided war and worship. Forests were sacred, rivers were gods. Every battle was a ritual, and every warrior carried the weight of his ancestors. Julius Caesar feared them. In his own words, the Celts are fierce and proud. They fight like men who have nothing to lose and everything to prove. For centuries, they resisted Roman domination, not for gold or land, but for soul. And though their kingdoms are gone, their songs, their symbols, and their spirits still echo across the hills of the old world. 4. The Maori, warriors of the Pacific Fire. Far from the empires of the West, across the vast Pacific Ocean, lived a warrior people whose courage matched any army on Earth. They were the Maori, the proud, fierce guardians of Aotearoa, now known as New Zealand. They didn't build castles. They carved weapons from stone and bone. They didn't march in ranks. They danced into battle with the haka, a ritual of pure intimidation. Eyes wide, tongues out, chests pounding. The haka wasn't just a performance, it was a declaration. I am alive, I am unafraid, and I will not fall. Maori warriors were masters of guerrilla tactics. They fought in forests, ambushed with precision, and vanished like shadows. Their primary weapon, the taiaha, a spear staff that combined art and violence. Tribal loyalty ran deep. Bloodlines, honor, and mana, spiritual power, were everything. Even when European guns arrived, the Maori stood firm. During the New Zealand Wars of the 19th century, they dug sophisticated trenches and outmaneuvered trained British regiments. These weren't ancient warriors lost in time. They adapted. They survived. They endured. The Maori remind us that fearsome isn't just about violence. It's about pride, power, and presence. 5. The Assyrians, emperors of brutality. When you think of fearsome tribes, you might picture wild forests or mountain raids. But the Assyrians were something else entirely. They didn't just win wars, they perfected them. Emerging in Mesopotamia over 3,000 years ago, the Assyrians built one of the most advanced and terrifying military machines in ancient history. Their armies marched with iron weapons, war chariots, siege towers, and engineering precision. They were organized, brutal, and relentless. Cities that resisted burned. Enemies skinned alive or impaled as a warning. Their kings proudly carved these acts into palace walls, like horror films in stone. But fear wasn't all they mastered. The Assyrians established roads, libraries, and tax systems. They ran an empire based on efficiency and terror, a combination that worked frighteningly well. They crushed revolts before they began. And when Babylon rose against them, they wiped the city off the map. The Assyrians weren't just warriors. They were architects of empire, proving that the most fearsome force is one that mixes brains and blood. These tribes didn't build wonders of the world or write epic poems, but they carved their names into history with blood, fire, and fear. From the steppe-riding Scythians to the empire-breaking Assyrians, they remind us. Sometimes the most dangerous powers in history weren't kings or emperors. They were warriors, they were storms, and they were unforgettable. So, which of these ancient tribes do you think was the most fearsome? Let us know in the comments. And if you love uncovering the lost legends of history, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the past is far more terrifying than you think.